Hello to all the attendees that are on the line today. We're just going to start in about 1 minute just to give folks some time to join us. Okay, we're going to get started. Thanks for joining us today for Series 1 of the Mergers and Acquisitions topics, Content Migration and Application Decommissioning Strategies. We had done the first part of this series at the end of March. You may or may not have caught that one, but it is recorded. And this will continue into 2 more after this one today. So just a little bit of housekeeping. The GoToWebinar is automatically muted and in listen-only mode. At the end of the session, you are welcome to send any questions directly through the chat to the organizer. It's going to be myself or to Mike. And the session today will be recorded, so you'll be able to share it with your colleagues or go back and view something. If you wanted to revisit something we're talking about today, you're welcome to do that. So I'm Larissa Primavera. I'm the Director of Sales for our FME US group. And with me today I have Mike Uhlenberg. He's a product consultant with FME AG. He's actually out of Germany. So for the agenda, we're going to do a quick introduction of FME. We're going to recap a little bit from our webinar back in March on challenges of mergers and acquisitions. We'll talk a little bit about Migration Center, so an overview, and then Migration Center in action. So we're going to show you a demonstration of Migration Center today as well, a high-level file system to documentum demonstration. So who is FME? This is actually our headquarters in Braunschweig, Germany, fairly new building for us. Moved there about a year, maybe 2 now, ago. We were founded in 1995, again in Braunschweig. We have grown. Actually quite grown since then, up to 180 employees worldwide now. We have offices throughout Germany in Munich, Frankfurt, and Cologne. We also have subsidiaries in the United States and in Romania. So I come from our U.S. office in Danbury, Connecticut. We started the Danbury office and team in March of 2010, so we're already in our 7th year here in the United States. So the company, FME Group, focuses in on ECM, so Enterprise Content Management. We're an EMC partner and have partnered with EMC many years ago, back in 96, 97, actually when it was Documentum, and have grown that relationship. We have the ability to resell any Documentum product CCD line, and we do services for Documentum, so soup to nuts services, whether it's implementations, migrations, consolidations, even architecture reviews. We do many different things as far as services for EMC Documentum. We do have a couple of folks, there are some smaller teams that do Alfresco and SharePoint, but again, mainly focusing in on Documentum. We do business intelligence. We partner with a company called Click, and we work with ClickView and ClickSense as well. So we do custom software development. And again, mostly consulting. That is the core of our business, is in consulting, but we have product lines. So we're talking about Migration Center today, how it's used in mergers and acquisitions, but it has many other use cases, which you will learn today as well. And then we have Content Doorway. It's a new product, so I do encourage you to visit the website, content-doorway.com. It was showcased at EMC World. So we just wanted to do a quick high-level recap of the challenges of mergers and acquisitions, and many of you that have gone through this already or maybe coming to go through this, whether it's in the pharmaceutical industry, oil and gas industry, it happens all over in any industry. A lot common that we see is in the pharmaceutical industry. So really having the ability to understand the scope of the merger and acquisition. So we're working with actually a large pharmaceutical today that, they merged with another large pharmaceutical, so it's 2 very big entities. And as I'm sure you're aware, these there's a lot of different technologies, whether it's in the ECM space, but it also falls into other areas like in HR and other groups and businesses too. But so you really have to understand the scope of this and what you need to do. So, and getting the IT involved very early in the process is very important. So because they understand the systems, they understand the network capacities, how much things can handle. They'll also help you figure out what portfolios you have in place today. So it's very important to get that IT involved early. and they can help you do portfolio rationalization. So what do you have and where, and sometimes that's very challenging to find out what is actually there within the other organization. So it takes a lot of different people coming together to figure out what systems actually exist. And then, of course, what might need to be decommissioned, what's older and legacy and maybe not supported. And then take into effect the semi-unstructured and the unstructured data silos. So a lot of times the data ends up in silos and you can't get to that information. One person can get in, but the other one can't. I heard from another pharmaceutical that had acquired a few companies, and the information's still siloed, so they can't always get to the information. So what happens is you get this high volume of information all throughout, and a lot of times too it could be global. So there could be information in Europe and Asia, all over. So it's a very high volume of information. So the management of the semi-unstructured and unstructured information is imperative. So definitely figuring out what's there. It's in so many different locations throughout the organizations, and a lot of times there's no ECM strategy. So possibly one of those, smaller pharmaceutical companies didn't yet have an ECM strategy in place. So that can happen as well. So there's terabytes of legacy data in diverse out-of-date systems. It costs a lot of money to maintain. And then finding everything is very difficult. As I mentioned before, there was one company we were talking to that said, oh, I can't get to the information because, or this person can't get to the information because I'm the only one that has the login to that system. So that definitely is the reality, and it happens. Records management policies might not be in place as of late, or information governance, so RPS is not existing. And then, of course, regulatory compliance becomes at risk if those policies aren't set. So the vision would be to create a more effective information governance. That's crucial to an organization. So what we work with several pharmaceutical companies is, standardizing on a technology platform. In our case, it's D2 Life Sciences platform. So standardizing on that and identifying those data silos, and then establishing a roadmap to consolidate those. And then, of course, adopting a records management policies and implementing that, and also an archive strategy. So when you're looking at these data silos, you have to actually look into them and classify them. And as one of our premier partners, AdLib, would say, AdLib Software, it's dark data, so you really need to identify what's there in a lot of these data silos and file shares. So as part of the follow-up, we'll be having AdLib talking about their classification solution. So they'll talk about what to do there and how to approach it. And then we'll also be covering in the series in the next month the EMC Info Archive product. So, how you can take advantage of Info Archive to archive these legacy systems and decommission them. So in our webinar today, we're going to talk about this platform consolidation. So how do we do that? How do we consolidate from file shares, from old ECM systems, from maybe even FileNet, into one unified EMC document and platform, whether it's the life sciences suite in our life sciences industries, or maybe it's D2, so you're going to go to the latest and greatest for this platform standardization as well. So take advantage of what's out there as you're going through this roadmap and figuring out your standard platform. So this leads us into Migration Center. So what we found, the challenges of content migration, is in 6 different categories. This is what we found over the years. Migration Center's been around for, it's 10 now, but it's almost 11 very soon. I think in a couple months it'll be 11 years old. But in a mergers and acquisitions situation, really all of these come into play. So all of these challenges are faced. So you need to migrate. So we talked about that, these legacy ECM systems. Again, whether it's old FileNet, a Mobius, it could be a first doc on Documentum, but you want to move to D2 Life Science. So there's that need to migrate these repositories into the standardized platform. And of course, there's consolidation. So as you're going through this whole project for the merger and acquisition, you might find that within your current company, not the new one you're coming in or bringing in, you have 5 or 6 repositories. Maybe you want to take those down to 1 or 2. So break that down. So you want to consolidate them. Or maybe the company you merged with had Documentum already. and you want to bring that Decommissioning system into the new system. And then, of course, there's extend. So we talked about before, maybe one of those companies does not have an ECM solution in play, so you want to extend them and bring the file share system into Decommissioning. And then, of course, replace. So you're replacing older systems. And then there's the big one, archive. So we talked about Info Archive and how Migration Center does support moving many systems into Info Archive. So that's something that Migration Center can help with as well if that archive strategy is Info Archive. And then there's the other category. Some benefits here. We have time-scheduled migrations. We can schedule the migrations to run. And then one of the benefits there is you can schedule them to run during the day so the users can be up and running. So a lot of times it's a global, the merger and acquisition becomes global entities. So there's no time to take down these systems in order to do these migrations. So Migration Center allows you the ability to schedule them and also allows you the ability to do it while users are up and running. So why Migration Center? So you can see just the snapshot of companies, and that's just a partial customer list that are using Migration Center today. And again, as covered in the last slide, so many different use cases. Standard & Poor's was one, it was a consolidation project. It wasn't a merger and acquisition situation, but it was a global implementation that we wanted to consolidate to one repository in the United States. So we were able to do that with 4 overseas locations into one, and that was a project done with FME. Let's take, for example, Eli Lilly. They actually use it in-house on their own. So the product itself is 100% out of the box. So you don't necessarily need our services team to come in and help, but many companies do take advantage of having FME services come and help them with an engagement as well. But it doesn't, you don't have to, because it's 100% out of the box. And also with Migration Center, it's very flexible. So if there's a customization or something our customers want to see, we have a company right now that wants to allow users, like 5 to 10 users, the ability to just scan the Decommissioning repository. So we're actually going to do a little customization where they just see the scanner button in the UI. So it's very flexible, and we have our product team in Romania that helps us with any development there. So if anything needs to be changed or customized, we do a couple days services engagement with our customers and are able to provide that. But in general, there's no additional programming or scripting efforts needed. We've done over 200 plus migration projects. Again, I said 10 years on the market. We're going into our 11th year. Migration Center was born from a project, actually, in a Decommissioning project. And it is the most mature path that we have, any migrations to any Decommissioning solutions. So it is, again, the most mature path. I mentioned before there's no downtime, so your businesses can continue to work, and you can run your migrations, and it doesn't take them out of their everyday work. It's fit for highly regulated systems. You can see that here with our pharmaceutical snapshot, but then there's also maybe FTC regulations and other regulations that we can apply as well. Very high performance with Migration Center. We did a project, it was 40 million records. That was actually an old FileNet system to Decommissioning in a financial institution, and it handled the 40 million document migration. We just came into a new one that has 200 million and going to work to scale up to perform for 200 million. And another one, very interesting, was over 1 billion, and I heard this yesterday. So we're going to help out with that one and do a proof of concept and get that running, but it's 1 billion. So Migration Center has performed quite well with high volume. We have flexible and simple pricing models, and we're certified by leading ECM vendors. So a little bit of the solution overview of Migration Center. It does require the Oracle database. That's the engine. That's where basically we say all the magic happens, the critical processes. It's using an Oracle database. We have the Windows client, which is the control center for all migration phases and jobs. And Mike will actually show you that, so you'll see that Windows client today. And then the job servers run all the exports and scans. So you have your source systems and your target systems. In this case, we're talking mainly about the EMC platform. So we do support EMC D2, WebTop, DCM, if folks ever need to do that, info archive. One use case right now we're working with is an eRoom to info archive, retiring the eRoom systems. So that's one. That's an example of moving to info archive. So we have many paths. So you can go database to the ECM platform. You can go notes to the ECM platform. That's a very popular one right now, the domino path. And whether you go to info archive to archive those, or you're going into the ECM platform. So it's a popular one. And the other one that's pretty useful is our database adapter. It's actually been used to do an open text to document a migration, since we don't have that direct scanner. So this one is a very flexible path for customers to use. And then we have an API framework. So if something doesn't exist today, we give customers the ability to buy the custom paths so they can create their own adapters. So there might be some system like, let's say, a Mobius system that we don't have today, but it can be developed by our customers, so they choose, if they choose to do that. So in a mergers and acquisition scenario, having the ability to move, many different ECM systems into the EMC platform is vital. So the outstanding capabilities, we did cover some of these already, managing large data volumes, the central migration database, and then the successive Delta migrations, I didn't really touch on that yet. So when you're running these scheduled migrations in the background that we talked about, at the end, you can actually run the Delta, and what Migration Center does is just grab what's changed since your last scan. So you don't have to shut down for a huge amount of time, like in older technologies. You can actually just shut down on a weekend to do the Delta cutover, so pick up what, what's changed since, and then get that into the new system so you'll be able to start on Monday with your new system. And I believe that brings me to Mike. For this one, Mike, I don't think you need to grab control yet, but if you can cover the step-by-step migration, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Larissa. Hello, everyone, from my side. Yes, step-by-step migration, what we mean with this. So, yeah, we typically divide the whole migration, let's say, in 6 phases, and our tool, the Migration Center software, directly support us in every single step and phase. So basically, you want to go from analyze to import, of course. So we have these 6 phases like analyze, organize, transform, validate, correct, and import. So yeah, until you are not finished and having not every single document imported, you need to do some things, right? You need to transform, especially your documents, or at least the metadata, to fit from the source system to fit in the new target system, right? So let me just go through every single phase now. So the first phase is analyze. What we mean with analyze is more or less collecting the documents already with the Migration Center. So we call it scanner. We have scanners and importers, and we have the transformation in the middle. So with the analyze phase, we already have documents scanned with Migration Center, so we have their metadata, and we know, let's say, how many documents we have. We can create special queries, rare conditions, and this and that, so that we only get, let's say, our desired data at this point. So the next phase is the organized phase, which means to put all the analyzed or scanned data, which can be really many or huge amount, and to organize them in human readable packages. So we call this migration sets, or mix sets in short. So this means you just break them in units. For example, you do it by department, or by people, or by time, or by any attribute you can imagine, which you have scanned or analyzed from the source system. So then you really build packages. So after you have built these packages, you can go on with the transformation. In the Migration Center, we do that with transformation rules. And this means you can put specific transformation rules on each mix set, on each package you have created in the organized phase, and because they could have individual rules yeah, but maybe they have rules in common, so you can easily manage it. And then we have the transform. So after we made our metadata, our object type definition to fit into the new system, we can also validate them in the migration center. In general, they have to be validated somehow. If not, the import should do it. So that means you can really have a check in our migration center database against the object type definition from the target system, just to make sure at this point already, without touching the import itself, to make sure that your newly transformed data, transformed with your transformation rules and so on, will fit into the target system. So this is be done by the limitations of the object type definition in terms of length, minimum, maximum, and this and that. Just to be sure that the import normally should work. There could only be technical side effects, but this is let's say clear. So if the system is down or something like this, and after you see that you did not validate, or the data did not validate, you just go to the correct phase. So you can do that with Migration Center correct. The things change the transformation rules set and so on, and then you go again to transform, validate, let's say. And until you have really validated data, so from the validate or corrected phase, you go into the last phase. This is the import step, and then you can really be sure that the data will fit. And the import, even after the import, if data does not go into the new system or new platform, because of users are missing or technical problems, or the metadata has object type definition has changed in the meanwhile, whatever, then you go back to the validate phase in Migration Center. You can correct again, and then you go ahead with a new import. So with other words, from analyze to import, we cover the whole process, let's say, with the Migration Center software. Yeah, that's it for this slide.
Now you're going into action with the demo, right?
Exactly. So I just changed the presenter here. Give me a second. Okay.
We see it.
Okay, perfect.
So hopefully everyone does too. Yep.
Yeah, if you have any questions, right, we have Marissa already speak about this, so yeah, just put your question inside the question panel, and we will cover and answer those questions later, right? All right, so let's start with our simple or brief demo with Migration Center. So today we want to scan a file system. This is our demo data bank customer folder here. We have a structure like this. So we have correspondence, emails, and other contracts, really simple documents, office formats here. And we want to, let's say, migrate this structure from the file system. It could be any system at this point, right? With a structure, with a little transformation into our Documentum. But I really do only basic transformation. So we want to go from the file system into Documentum like this. And I create also a new cabinet in here. Okay, all you need to do is you set up one job server, and then you really only use the Migration Center client. So when you have set up one job server, you just add it into the, let's say, Migration Center ecosystem like this. You add a new job server with a location, and then you see the status is available. The job server is, so to speak, the horse in the system. So this is a processing unit which will scan and import files from and to the corresponding platforms. All right, once you did this, you can start and go ahead with the analyze phase. So at this point, I already prepared something here, but let me just show you how to create a new scanner. So you click on new, and then you give it a name. That's not that interesting, but then you choose the adapter type. And here you see a distinct, a list of our adapters, or the adapters which you have installed here. And you see there are a lot. And once you selected one adapter, you see the corresponding parameters, or in other words, you see the corresponding features the systems normally offers. So if you select other systems like this, Documentum or eRoom or database, whatever, you have specific parameters, right? Okay, if we just close this one and go to my, let's say, prepared scanner, but actually I only put the file store location in here. Yeah, so with the location here, you choose the job servers. So you choose the job server which should really do the scan. This is for scalability. You can have plenty or really a couple of job servers in here and also a couple of scans, and then you can scale the whole thing, right? So I just copied the path from this folder here. No, typically this is a file share, and this is a scan folder path, and this just tells the migration center that I want to scan all the files and maybe also folders inside this directory here. Yeah, I have also other options like exclude folder or files, ignore hidden files. I can also move the scan files. It's interesting to move the already scanned files to another folder that I know I have already processed these. And I can also do with other adapters too, I can compute the checksum, right? This is very important because with the checksum you can check later on duplicates and also check on the integrity after the import. So most of our importers also offer this checksum feature just to compare the checksum, and so you can make sure that the content or the files were transferred successfully from A to Z. Okay, I will leave it as it is. So I already saved it, and now I click on Run to run this scanner configuration. So here's a description, and we can click on history here and refresh to see the scan, and you see it's quite fast at this point. The file system is the fast platform. So now we have 793 objects finished. You see the times here. You see a scan run, so I can also run the scan again now, and the migration center would see the changes, if there are new documents or if documents have changed, and then I would have something like a delta run, right? The migration center core, the database now have every information they need and it needs, and I will keep track of every single object. So that, now I have all my metadata and all these things here stay saved in the database, and the content files are actually still on the file system in this location. Okay, in this grid here, you can also copy and edit, of course, scan run configurations. So you can also copy them for your convenience, and you can have many of them. So you could also run 4 scanners in parallel, for example. All right, let me close the scanner window. So now we have all data in Migration Center. We have scanned the file system. We have the metadata and the content files still on the file system. So we go ahead and create, in the organize phase, we create mix sets. Yeah, I created already a mix set also here so I just will open the configuration. Typically, you give it again a name, and then you choose the corresponding type, right? Let me open this list because these are these 90 plus passes we offer. So you see you can go from basically everywhere to anywhere. So in this case, we choose the file system to documentum pass. Yeah, the next step is to choose a file scan. So now we will see all file scans which have been made from the file system. So in this case, we take this. And the next step could be to exclude objects by values. This means I do not want all the files from one scan inside this specific mixset. Maybe I want to exclude objects. So I go to exclude objects here, and now we see a distinct list of the attributes or metadata from the file system, and now I can go ahead, click on them, and then I also see the distinct list of values. For example, in file system, it makes sense to see or have a look on the extension, and now I can see what I have scanned, and here I can decide, for example, I don't want links in my documentum and messages, and also notes documents should not go into documentum, so I exclude them here, and I can process them later in another mix set. So this makes sense at this point. Okay, after this, if that's not enough for you, exclude objects by values, you can even set up advanced filters. And here it's often used with a creation date and a smaller or bigger, like a date value. And then you can connect these conditions. It's like a where condition with and or, and you can imagine you can really set up a list of where conditions here just to exclude files from your mixset with specific where conditions, right? And this can be used if you have an archive use case, for example, if you say, okay, every document which has not been touched in the last 4 years can be archived, for example, then you can set up a between date query like this, and then you only have documents which are really not touched in the last 4 years by the modified date, for example. So you can imagine this is mighty or flexible really to have at the end to have really your scope of documents. So once I click on select objects here, I have now 720 something objects here, and you see this is a mixed set view. You see now we have them in the unprocessed status. So now we want to go through transform. Here we have our phases again to validate, and we want to end up in imported. You also would see partially imported documents or errors, and as I said previously, you can always, let's say, reset the mix set or the information and to come back to a state where you can change things and go ahead, validate again and import. Okay, what you need to do is to come to the documentum system, you need to edit the transformation rules for this mix set. And I already prepared something here, so it's a very basic demo. Actually, I just clicked on generate rules here, and this will just generate my attributes from the file system. So such a rule is at the end will be associated with the documentum attribute, and it's basically a rule. So it's a rule which contains functions to get to your desired metadata values. So with other words, this is a transformation engine, and the editor is the transformation rules editor. So if you have a look on just one rule here as an example, I get the title rule here at this point, and I have a function, and let me show you all functions like this. It's a string manipulating functions. The easiest one is the get value. So I have a function here, get value by source attribute, and I just put as a file name from the file system from the scan into my title rule. If it makes sense or not, it's on another page. But at this point, I just save it. I want to show you how quickly you can, let's say, change your transformation rules and define those. So once you created the rules, so now I have a basic one-by-one mapping with the title. I just click on apply transformation, and I have now 726 objects in the transform status. So then we can go to a view. So here we have a source object view, which is always untouched. So here we have every time all objects in an original state with original metadata. Then we have the process and error objects. So when we are going to the processed objects here, let's say maximize this a little bit. We see our metadata, right? So this is metadata from the file system. We have some migration center metadata like the content location and an ID and source system and so on. And additionally, we have our file system metadata like content size, creation date, extension, file name, and these others here, and as well as our, let's say, created attribute like title. So this is the object name. So I just want to show you how quickly you can change this, because let's say we are not satisfied with the title here. We want to change the title. So I just go back to the transformation editor here. Go to the title rule. And now I simply add another string to the title, right? So let me concatenate this function. So I insert a concatenate function. I choose here previous step, so this will refer to this one, and I just added a dummy value. right? So I just save it. So now my rule contains two functions. First of all, get value, the file name from the scan, and then concatenate the first function, like file name here, with a new value like this. I just save my configuration, reset my previous made processing like this. Now it's empty, so we have no processed documents, and I apply the transformation again like this. And you see, you already have a change value. So now I changed the title attribute from the old one with the object name and concatenated it with a new value. Right? It makes no sense at this point, but you see how quickly you can change the transformation rules to just get to your desired information or attributes at the other end. At every time when you see such a metadata grid, you can first of all show and hide columns. So this is just for your convenience, really to focus on some important metadata you want to change, maybe like this. And also to we have another option to export the view to a CSV file, to for example import it into an Excel file, and then to share it with your stakeholders, right, with business department or with the end user. So this can be done, for example, as a communication tool with your users, let's say, just to make sure that you have the correct data here, or you can also extract the data to give it to the users, and they can somehow enter new values you need, and you can go again here to calculate the data or transformate the original data to the desired data, and then share it again and ask for confirmation or something like this. So you can really play around with the metadata until you have a desired state, not only for you as a administrator, let's say, also for the end user. So you can really communicate these values. At least you can have example values, because if you have millions, you won't export this maybe to a user, but you can do so if you like. Okay, let's imagine we leave it as it is. So we have our metadata here like this. Actually, I won't import all of this metadata, so I just close the window here. We leave the transformation as it is, and now we go ahead into the validation. And I already associated some files, some attributes like object name and title, created date and modified date. And now it will validate all the metadata I have associated against the target type object type model. I just need to show you these object types like this. So all the metadata was just validated against DM document. So I'm using DM document for this simple demo. So you see we have a DM document object type description here, and you see already we have a type for every attribute, a minimum, maximum length, repeating, if it's mandatory, or regular expressions like this. So I already prepared this one, so we have the DM document. I assigned and associated some attributes already to it. So we are finished somehow with the association, and we have all of the documents now in a validated state. So important here to say is Migration Center only allows you to import or go on with the import with validated objects. So with other words, something like this mixset in a transformed status cannot be imported at this point. You must be on a validated state like this. So just to ensure that you have no problems or error in your mixset, or you didn't do something by mistake, right? So once you got here, you can go with the import. Okay, and I will do that now. So I close the mixset window. I just open an importer window, and this is similar to the scanner windows. And let me open this prepared importer. It's the same like in scanners. Right here at this point you select your adapter type, then you have parameters you need to fill in, and you choose the job server which should do the actual job. So with this importer I already entered the credentials for our documentum. I entered the repository, and then you have also some options like import objects, import only relations, import audit trails, or everything at a single run. So in this case, we don't have relations audit trails from the file system. Then you can also choose the number of threads just to speed up your import, as well as you can set here a starting location. It's like a cabinet, and I will call it demo cabinet. So this cabinet will be created. And here, as I said previously, with the scanner MD5 checksum, you can also check the content integrity, which just compares the MD5 checksum before and after the import, let's say. So I will auto-create the folders, which are missing. So I save this configuration. Now I can add my mixset to the importer, save it, and then let it run. So here I click again on history, and now it's importing. And we can also have a look to our jobs when we click on the jobs window here. So there's an overview of all running jobs at the moment. We see a percentage progress, and we can also at any time pause or stop the job. Yeah, this is important. For example, if your system is, the impact or the performance impact is too high on the system and users complaining, we can stop or pause it at any time, right? So once it's finished, it just disappears from here, and then we have finished with the import. So now you see 726 objects imported. You can always have a look to the log file, so this is more technically, but if you have any errors, this can help here to fix them. And then, yeah, you also see in the mix set here, let me close other windows again. You see in the mix set now we have the 726 objects in the imported stat. We can also have a look to the process objects here for the new metadata in brackets, so we know what we created, but we see now the actual metadata which we have imported into Documentum. And once we are here, we can, let's say, finish this mixset or this project because we are inside. Now, of course, we can check it in the target system. Let's have a look if we have created a new mixset. Yes, we have the demo cabinet, and now it created all, hopefully, let's say, all the folders and also the documents inside here just in some minutes with a very basic transformation, right? So you can imagine if you come from any other system, the Migration Center works like it scans data from a system through a connector, through an adapter, and then it kind of generalizes the data in the middle, in the Migration Center core. So you're really flexible and able to go with the data wherever you need to go, right? Some files can be archived, some files can be go into Documentum, for example, and other files can be go to on a file system, for example, on a CD or on a file share. I don't know, to archive them or something like this. So with other words, the Migration Center in the core, in the framework, is really flexible to transform your data wherever they come from into new data for your, let's say, new platform, right? You need, or platforms. It's really a specialty. Okay, I think that's for the demo. So yeah,
Thank you, Mike. That was great.
Okay.
If you want to pass me control again.
Of course.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Okay. So we just wanted to go over a couple more slides. I had mentioned before about having flexible pricing for Migration Center. So here's some example pricing. We base it off the Migration Center core. So the Migration Center core has a cost. And then we have prices for each path. So in this example we're showing, we have file system to Documentum, as Mike just showed you. But you know, each path, so Documentum to file system is a path, and then say database to Documentum would be a path. So each different path has a cost associated. They actually, the costing varies upon complexity of the migration. So when you get Documentum to Documentum direct, it might be a little more expensive than, say, the file system to document them. So they're all priced accordingly. You can add several different paths to one core, so you don't necessarily need to have, 2 cores and one path for each core. You can add 3 or 4 to one Migration Center core instance. The other nice thing about Migration Center is we don't price per document count. So if it's 40 million, like the case I mentioned before, you can use the one path with the Migration Center core. And we also don't price for the QA dev and test environments. So it's some very flexible pricing for our customers. And then we just launched the new Migration Center website. It's pretty exciting. We're in the process of launching our new corporate website by the end of this month. But the Migration Center one is up, and there's lots of information on there for you to view. There's there's videos, there's references, there's all the product information, and then we also offer the free trial version, so you can request like an eval copy for 2 weeks from us and on a specific path, and we'll be able to provide that to you to do some testing if there's interest in our product. And then before we open it up to questions, I had mentioned before that this is part of a series, so series 2. The email invitation should go out soon. We're going to pick the date for that. So as not to inundate you with emails, we wanted to spread them out a little bit. So it would be effective archiving strategies and talking about EMC's info archive. And that would most likely be mid-end June. We'll get that scheduled and that invitation out for you. And following that is Series 3, and AdLib Software is actually going to present for this webinar, and it's elevating unstructured content. So talking about their classification solution, a little bit about their AdLib enterprise software. Again, they're a premier partner of ours, and we work very closely with them. So that, I would say a month after that, maybe late July, early August. So we were going to keep going with our series. And with that, if there's any questions, feel free and post them for us. And I will read them aloud and we will answer them. So far, Mike, we don't have any. We have a quiet bunch today, but let's see. Okay, we do have one coming in. Hello, I would like to clarify if you have experience migrating data from IBM Content Manager. If yes, it is enough to have Migration Center as an out-of-the-box product, or is there need for some additional modifications of the product? Mike can jump in and cover with me, or you want to take that one, Mike?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question actually. We at the last days or these days, let's say, we have often asked if we have something for IBM Content Manager. So the question is very good because we don't have an official or out-of-the-box connector right now, but we did something with a database adapter here. But actually we are really quite in the plannings of creating such an adapter for our product. So it is an out-of-the-box product somewhere. So yeah, we can really have afterwards talks, let's say, about this. So I'm really interested in your interest, let's say, into having such an adapter.
Yeah, so we can follow up with you directly as well. I had mentioned before that database adapter is extremely flexible, and it's been used to move an open text to document them, but as Mike said, I guess there's talks of creating one, so that's good news. Thanks, Mike. So we'll give another minute or two for any other additional questions, and we might be able to give you back some time today. Looks like maybe 10 minutes or so, so we'll just hold on for another minute and we can close it out. That's a new coming in, Mike. We have a quiet bunch today. They know it all, right? Mergers and acquisitions and migration settings. So with that, we will conclude. If there's any questions, you can contact us directly or info@fme-us.com. Feel free and email us there, and we can pick it up and continue conversation. So with that, I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you, Mike, for your time today. We appreciate your help with this one, and we'll everybody have a great day.
You're always welcome. Have a great day.